Good day and welcome America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Truth Matters. Tom Donahue Reports, broadcasting from Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty, and so glad to have you. Patriotism in action. And I don't always say those things that I've said in the past, and I think I might start incorporating more of those. Freedom fighter, liberty lover, certainly a defender of the Constitution, and this is the birthplace of the American experience here. So I'm glad that I can be a part of that. And I'll tell you, anytime that I go downtown, because I live in the northeast part of Philadelphia, and I am around Independence Hall and the National Constitution Center and the Liberty Bell, it's really an amazing experience. I mean, you can see the Liberty Bell even at night through the glass enclosure. So it's kind of cool. And then you can be, whether you're on the bus, you're walking, you can get really close to Independence Hall and then all the other historic buildings. So it's quite a treat. And you can almost feel history in your bones, in your spirit. With that said, it seems like even with someone like Trump in office, our freedoms and liberties are being suppressed and oppressed. And it's really a sad thing because we thought it would be the opposite. Remember, George Washington warned us about foreign entanglements, and Trump is foreign entanglements on steroids. I mean, he is initiating, he is creating these disruptions and these diversions, diversions from like the Epstein files. But it goes beyond that because Trump has many, many bank loans out to Rothschild controlled and related banks. He has, it seems that there's more to the Epstein story through the Israeli Mossad connections. And it could be a case of blackmail to some extent. Then you have Jared Kushner and you have Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and Ferry Graham. And that's what we're going to call Lindsey Graham, Ferry Graham, with the little bubble one at Disney World, which we've discussed in detail. And then we have Ted Cruz, who said his highest allegiance and first priority is always to Israel. And of course, you got Mike Huckabee, who is extremely pro-Zionist. And again, you have the right to have favorable feelings towards Israel, be supportive if you want, but don't put that country's interest above ours. So Trump is subservient to the state of Israel, and his highest priority is to the state of Israel, actually to himself. Now, Trump is all over the map with the ceasefire and peace agreement and restarting the war and who knows. But Iran's also playing hardball. They're not being intimidated by Trump and his threats. Now, this was a very interesting story that came out through the Wall Street Journal. Remember, the Wall Street Journal is owned by Murdoch. Wall Street Journal has always been considered a very conservative financial publication and typically has high credibility. But in this story, remember, they were the ones that broke the story about the birthday card that documented that Trump, signed and did a drawing. And remember, he said he couldn't do drawings, and then it's been proved that he has done drawings, not advanced, but drawings. And so this story, they say Trump was sidelined by his own aides in the daring Iran rescue mission over fears he jeopardized the mission because of his impatience. So he's being managed sort of like the way Biden was being managed. But Trump is more erratic and more psychotic and deranged than Biden. Biden was demented and basically a basket case. So you have two of these old codgers, for different reasons, are closing in on being virtually incapacitated, certainly mentally disabled. Now, Kash Patel, it's come out that, he's a serial drunk. And that he's a binge drinker, and he locks himself away and goes to sleep to the extent that they have to have security figure out a way to get into the office to see if he's alive. Okay, so maybe he and Hegseth go to the same Republican pubs and bars in D.C. and maybe take trips to Vegas together. But I'm just kind of speculating. But we do have two stone cold drunks that are in this cabinet. And they say Trump is on the verge of firing Patel for a multitude of reasons, but this certainly lends to that, especially with Trump being a non-drinker. Trump's approval rating sink to the lowest in the second term, in the low to mid-30s. And that's with the MAGA base propping that up. It would be much lower if more MAGA people just said, rest in peace, case closed. Trump infiltrated a movement and destroyed it. Okay. He ran it off the rails. That he drops jaw-dropping attacks on whomever it might be. Now it's the whole Democrat Party for opposing the Iran war. And he says they're traitors all. Bold, uppercase, boldface, exclamation points, in quotations. Yeah. Who is the biggest traitor of America first? Hi there, traitor, tyrant Trump. Yeah, so we're going to have to call Trump, besides tyrant, traitor Trump, because he's a traitor to the principles. He's betrayed us in a multitude of ways. It's extremely disappointing, but predictable. And like I say, I was one of the first to start really bringing down the sledgehammer on Trump. Trump doubles down. He's threatening to destroy the civil infrastructure of Iran if they refuse a deal. So you're willing to commit war crimes because you can't get the deal that you want, which is, pure insanity. They say that the traders, these speculators, based on Trump's tweets or social media posts, that there's been over $1 billion in timed bets relating to the actions taken by Trump. So there's been huge windfalls. Now, another story that's coming out that is, I don't know, I want to really go there, but I've heard some rumblings, I've seen some things, I've read some things, but even Marjorie Taylor Greene is questioning the details surrounding the Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. So it's now to the point where the Metro and MSN has come out with a story. It says MAGA now thinks Trump's assassination attempt was a hoax. Now, very fitting, because Trump feels like he can call anything he disagrees with, any criticism that the story is a hoax, it's fake. Well, now we can reverse the roles and we can use the same strategy so that we can say everything that Trump says or does is a hoax. Now, of course, I'm not going to do that. I don't know enough, but you have to remember Trump has a background of faking calls. Matter of fact, he called into C-SPAN and used, an alias, an AKA, and everyone knew it was his voice, but that was within the last month or so. He used to call and talk to reporters and try to, disguise his voice. With Page 6, he wanted to be in there about, this eligible bachelor and these models and actresses he's dating and how hot he is and handsome. And so Trump, besides the fact that he was in the celebrity realm, the reality TV realm, which is not really based on reality, and then he had a stint working with Vince McMahon and the WWE professional wrestling. And he's a fan of all combat sports, including wrestling. And they're known for blading. And if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. But sometimes you'll even see it if you slow down the footage, that the wrestlers would have a little blade that would be in a little pocket or taped to them, where in their waistband. And trying to keep away from the camera, they would just do a quick snippet to their forehead. Not too painful, but, it would create blood, real blood, rather than, if they just threw blood on themselves, it would just go away very quickly. So, having a flow of blood in the forehead, which we saw at the WrestleMania event, that was broadcast on ESPN's channels and platform, that there was some blood involved. Some of it could have been because of them hitting certain objects or certain rough falls, but in all likelihood, at least half of those blood spots were self-induced. They were bladed. And so when I'm thinking about these accusations and allegations, and Trump being an actor, being a celebrity, matter of fact, he was inducted into the WWE celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame. And he's attended some of the Hall of Fame events. And of course, he was very good friends with Hulk Hogan, and Hogan was the master of blading. What if, and again, this is a big if, and again, I don't know if I even want to delve into this. I think I will report on what other people are reporting if it's credible. But what if Trump, when he dropped down, bladed his ear? already had practiced this, knew exactly how to do it so it wouldn't be so painful, but it would have his catchphrases, fight, fight, fight. What if this was a staged operation to guarantee his I almost want to say re-election, but he lost to Biden, so a second term, and it was powerful and it did move the needle. And so it wouldn't, to me, you can see how casual Trump is about other people losing lives or sending, soldiers to war or to be bombing civilian targets. So what would stop Trump from, if a stray bullet from a gunman, we just don't know. But there's been a lot of, you can research it for yourself, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities, knowing what Trump knows and believing in staging things and acting and reality TV and professional wrestling. What if this was a reality? What if this was staged? And almost all these events, when there is a shooter, there's usually someone that is prompted to be there, that's paid to be there, that's the patsy, that's involved in some way, but maybe not the full. He doesn't have the full picture, just like with Charlie Kirk's assassination. We don't know. There's a lot of things coming out about that, which, I don't want to go too deeply into because there's enough people covering that. But all kinds of triggering devices and people that are dressed in the same colors and reacting in very unusual ways where they felt like you could see that they felt non-threatened, even though there's so-called bullets flailing around. So these folks, when it's an intelligence operation in these assassination plots, they almost always set up a patsy. Now, they could have some involvement and they could be guilty of even firing shots, but they're typically not a lone gunman. It's not usually a lone assassin, and they're not the mastermind. So anyway, these are just things that I think we should at least feel like we can address, because if Trump can bring up conspiracy theories and he can call things hoaxes, then MAGA and others have the right to do the same. But I just feel like everything is on the table to question, but we can't come to a conclusion unless the evidence supports that. Okay. That's why I feel like I'm factual and rational, but always willing to engage, but not concoct things, just to drive ratings or downloads or clicks. I don't clickbait. We're going to take a quick break here, and we certainly appreciate your attendance this evening, whenever you are listening and however you receive this program. There's multiple ways to do that, and we'll discuss that as well. I'm Tom Donahue. This is Truth Matters. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports, where the truth really does matter, shedding light and insight on the prevailing controversies, cover-ups, and conspiracies, always from an America First, patriotic, independent, conservative perspective. And be sure to listen each week at the same time. Also find out more about our show at TomDonahueReports.com, also available for podcast listen and download on all major podcast platforms. That's TomDonahueReports.com. We are back. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. It really does matter here. I want to focus on something that you probably have been reading about. And of course, there are certain news outlets on the right that are mentioning it, but not really talking about it. The Labor Secretary, Lori Chavez, hyphenated, whatever, she was forced to resign from the Trump administration after misconduct investigation first exposed by the New York Post, a conservative news outlet. They're the primary on this. And they found it was an inspector general's report investigating this because multiple people working under her became whistleblowers, and they filed complaints relating to the behavior And so it looks like she joins the list of losers, lushes, and louses in this administration that have been kicked to the curb or that will be kicked to the curb. And so, yes, another boozer, another loser. And so we don't know if Hegseth is hitting the bottle again, but he's got a long history of that and wouldn't surprise me. We know Kash Patel, who's, I'm suing you for $250 million, The Atlantic. Yeah, good luck with that. There were just too many sources, people that were working with you, for you, around you, that documented the obscene cases of intoxication. Just incredible. So the former Secretary of Labor, I say former because she's on her way out, she had booze stashed in the office. She had parties, and she had subordinates go out and pick up the liquor. And so, it gets even crazier, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but her husband was accused of sexual assault with some of these workers at the Department of Labor. And her father was hitting on them, and she knew about these things and did nothing. So it's a family affair. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, every week, whether it's Kristi Noem, whether it's Pam Bondi, whether it's Kash Patel, we are dealing with lunatics and losers and lushes. And we can just keep going with the L words, but the main point here is that we are dealing with losers. But it's really, it's a little bit odd that Trump is because of his family's background, in particular his brother, that there's been no documentation he's ever even sipped any liquor. He's not a drinker. And then he's got all these people around him that are just boozing it up. And so these people are impaired in the workplace. They're mistreating workers around them and endangering them and endangering the American public because they're not able to execute and perform their duties up to par. But this Inspector General's report, it is just devastating. And kudos to the New York Post, with them being a conservative outlet, that are saying, hey, whether it's Trump administration or not, we got to report on this. And I appreciate that. So this Inspector General's report, they interviewed dozens of staffers, and the IG gathered the evidence of the alcohol stash in the secretary's office. She took subordinates to an Oregon strip club. They've got pictures of her at the pool partying in her bikini. And a lot of this was taxpayer-funded travel, supposedly work-related. And apparently there's a parallel probe and report coming out from the Senate Judiciary Committee chair. So we'll see what happens with that. But her husband, Dr. Sean DeRemer, also was accused by female staffers of sexual assault, and that even the D.C. Metro Police Department had a report that was filed with them regarding a female staffer that cited the sexual contact against her will. This is unbelievable. So he doesn't work there, but, he's causing all kinds of mischief and mayhem. Her father was hitting on staffers, making phone calls. And this is just, it's a family affair. Boozers and abusers. This is what we've got. So, there's so much stuff going on in this Trump administration. This is just probably scratching the surface. I don't have all the time because we're doing a weekly show. It looks like the Republicans and Democrats, if when they expose one from the opposite party, then the other party exposes someone else because they know where the bodies are buried. They know the secrets. So it's pretty extraordinary, actually. So we have Eric Swalwell, who I always thought he was a creep, not just because he was a Democrat or leaning progressive. He quits the governor's race because of the sexual assault and sexual abuse allegations, and they're quite severe. We're talking rape, we're talking unwanted advances and the groping and pressure on the subordinates. So apparently it's been going on for quite some time, and he's married. Well, of course, he initially drops out of the governor's race. in California. Then, due to the pressure being placed upon him, and I appreciate Representative Luna from Florida, quite actually a very good congresswoman. He had to resign from Congress as well. So good riddance to that piece of human sewage. What a garbage person he is. It is my hope that he'll be criminally charged, although there will be the civil suits, I'm sure. Political embarrassment is not punishment enough. But here was a guy that would go on, all the news outlets, especially the MS, which was MSNBC, and talk about Trump's issues with women and other Republicans. But, he's acting like he's a saint and that he wants to investigate these other people when all along he knew and others around him knew that he was involved in these dubious and dastardly acts. Yeah, so we have Representative Tony Gonzalez, who Trump continued to support when there were multiple allegations against him relating to sexual abuse and harassment of subordinates, staffers. So Gonzalez is a father of 6, married, of course, and said that he was not involved in any sexual misconduct. And then, of course, the allegations started piling up. He dismissed the allegations as blackmail and coordinated attack to unseat him, which was completely untrue. And the woman that he took advantage of and placed the pressure on, and she also was married, because of all this coming out, committed suicide by fire, torched herself. His main concern was trying to stay in office, and also he was running for re-election. So Democrats and Republicans are trading scoundrels, sexual predators, sexual abusers, and there's more to come. Doing a partial cleaning of the sewer drain in the Congress, but that's going to take some time because they do have a slush fund that typically they silence people by paying them off, and that's been a known fact in D.C., the District of Criminals. It's just unbelievable, that we've got these scoundrels in the Trump administration, we've got them in Congress, and, they will go on these talk shows and accuse one another, participants from the opposite party, when many times they're the guilty party and they're the accuser. But in fact, at some point, it usually gets found out that, yeah, they were involved as well. So it's deeply disturbing, and everybody should take it very seriously, that the sexual harassment, the sexual abuse, in some instances, rape. But anytime that you are in the power position and that you have subordinates and you have staffers that you are in charge of, that you can call rank on and that you can pressure, it's just completely unconscionable and unacceptable. So we do have this cesspool, this, septic sewage tank that's backed up and needs to be plunged, that needs to be fumigated, and we got to take out the trash. So we just got to keep finding them and flushing them. That's my take on all this. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll come back with more. Stay tuned. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Welcome back, Tom Donahue. Truth matters. It really does matter. And I want to address something that I think is vitally important, especially in these times. And I have complimented to a great degree many of the podcasters and social media influencers that are focused on what really happened to Charlie Kirk and who is Erica Kirk really and her motives and background. And among other subjects like the Epstein files. But I caution everyone to be certain of the accuracy. Doesn't mean you have to stop listening. Just like Alex Jones, I've discussed his unhinged and inaccurate at times programs. So you have to have the spirit of discernment. So you have to be able to discern and decide for yourself and decipher at times. But nevertheless, I want to applaud some of these podcast programmers for not only the performance, but because of the information that's conveyed, whether it's Jimmy Dore, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Laura Petra. I was listening, and I don't know if it was a reel that came up or it was a podcast that happened to come on, but Candace Owens was discussing the attacks that are coming from Trump and one of his pit bulls, Laura Loomer. And Laura Loomer, you can call her Looney Loomer, you can call her Lunatic Loomer, because she is. And she is certifiable. And Candace was right. When I did the research, she was hospitalized, institutionalized for suicidal and psychiatric and manic behavior. And it was her father, Dr. Loomer, that was instrumental in 2 of her hospitalizations, and they were involuntary at 16 and 18 years of age, and that she has been banned from gun ownership because of her mental defects or deficiencies. So her Second Amendment has been taken away from her because of her unstable mental faculties. She has tried to regain that right, and many times the government looks at it as a privilege, and she's been unsuccessful, just like 2 congressional campaigns that she lost. Sort of like the female version of Dan Bongino, except Bongino's not quite crazy, but they are political losers and leeches. So Loomer, as we know, hearkening back to the 2024 campaign, we saw her by Trump's side quite often and flying in the Trump plane. Now, I don't know if it's the kind of plane that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski seem to use, but it's a known fact, and it should be quite obvious that Melania and the Donald are not close or intimate. So he may have sought out other forms of companionship, and he's got a record of that, like Bill Clinton. Just like Bill and Hillary, that's a business relationship, a political relationship. Now, the reason I say this is because Candace brought up the fact, and I saw a video. I mean, there's videos that I guess men have posted with her being extremely aggressive in social settings, in bars. And some men, young men, have said that she's groped them, made sexual advances, aggressively touching and assaulting them. So if she's sexually aggressive and Trump is like allowing her that close in proximity, who knows? Again, that's just pure speculation, but there's something very odd. And then she's become like the political whisperer, like when you hear about a wise man, well, she's the wise woman, not so wise, but Trump's influencer. And she has the hotline and is in direct communication, and her recommendations are taken to heart because she's responsible for many firings, good or bad. Now, one of the things that Candace brought up, which I believe, based on the research I've done after this, is that she is Jewish. And Candace was saying she was not. So I would hope that Candace would refrain from saying things that are stated as factual that may not be. Now, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but nevertheless, I really pride myself and I strive to be as accurate as possible, factual, as well as rational. But we all have the right to speculate, and there's a difference between speculation and stating, something as fact. So I try to be reality based and try to be truthful. And so accuracy does matter, and the facts do matter. And the truth, of course, as a show matters. But all indications from the research I'm finding is that she is Jewish by heritage, by background. And, how religious a Jew she is, I don't know, and I'm really not concerned about it. But we do know that she is very pro-Israel. She is a Zionist, and she is extremely anti-Muslim. Many have said that, and she said she's proudly Islamophobic. I just don't know why she's held in such high regard with Trump. Now, she has a background besides being a political failure, running for office. She did work for Project Veritas and O'Keefe, and, she would go in with the hidden mic and, pretend to be something she wasn't, do undercover work. Now, how successful she was at that, I don't know, but she did work with Project Veritas. For someone that is mentally unstable, someone that is politically unsuccessful, how did she rise to this level and be in Trump's inner circle and one of the most coveted and highly influential advisors? And she is an advisor. There's no doubt about that. Now, she has been, I guess, commissioned by Trump, but she'd probably do it on her own to go after Candace Owens and others that part of this MAGA rift and people that are severing ties with Trump, partly due to the Iran war, the Epstein files, and just the betrayal of America First and MAGA itself. So she is part of that neocon group, the Ted Cruz's, Farry Graham, Mark Levin, of course, Ben Shapiro, John McCain in spirit, the Bushes, the Cheneys of this world. I guess you can throw Sean Hannity in there. Yeah, lunatic loomer. Again, I don't want to make fun and cast aspersions because of mental health troubles, but it's factual that she has been institutionalized twice. She has been suicidal. Men are claiming that she's sexually aggressive and harassing them. She has clung on to the president like a barnacle on a boat, and we just don't know truly what that relationship entails, but it's not a good thing. To be a part of Looney Loomer's life is deleterious to one's own health and actual safety. So we've got this dangerous woman, suicidal, manic, highly aggressive, psychotic, that has her pulse on the political future of this country because Trump does listen to her, and she's become a trusted ally and advisor, maybe more. But I would certainly encourage you to look into this Laura Loomer. I guess she does some program called Loomer Unleashed. I mean, from what I could tell, just from when I do hear her voice and I've listened to her utterances, I don't know how anyone could listen. I mean, she sounds like a crazed teenager. So little or no credibility. But Trump's made a statement, and I've said it before, and it's worth repeating, that he likes to surround himself with losers because it makes him feel and look better. And we can see the cast of characters around him, many of them are losers and leeches, and that he feels superior. It feeds his ego. So he actually says he likes to surround himself with losers. So we're dealing with a psychiatric ward here, literally and figuratively, and she fits right in. So that's it for this segment for loser, loony, lunatic, loomer. So buyer beware. More to come. Right back. Hold tight. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Conspiracy Radio, the new streaming station offering shows only from this unique, compelling genre. They don't want you to know, but we do. Conspiracy Radio, formerly Patriot Radio Classics, is now streaming 24/7 with the greatest conspiracy radio programs from past and present. Political to the paranormal cover-ups, conspiracies exposed. From legendary past hosts to groundbreaking present-day popular shows. Listen 24/7 online at conspiracyradio.net or download the apps at TalkStreamLive.com. Visit conspiracyradio.net. That's conspiracyradio.net. Conspiracy Radio. Follow the evidence. Question everything.
Talk Right, the conservative app offered by TalkStream Live that caters exclusively to the conservative talk radio community. Here you'll see only talk shows and podcasts from the conservative right. All the big broadcast names and online digital shows in one place. Talk Right makes it easy to find all your favorite conservative talkers with all the upscale features you come to expect from TalkStream Live. Keep up with the fast-paced political world. Download Talk Right today from Google Play or the App Store.
For nearly 250 years, Americans have enjoyed a level of civility and prosperity. Wicked globalist operatives threaten it all. And the chaos around us is the result of an underlying spiritual war. See through the deception and discover the root of the world's conflicts. A startling new book from the host of the Truth Seekers radio show, Soulless Society. Available on Amazon in softcover, Kindle ebook, and Audible. Visit www.soullesssocietybook.com.
For every puppy purchased from a pet store or a breeder, a homeless dog at an animal shelter loses the chance of ever going for a romp in the park, chasing a ball, or feeling secure in a real home. Dogs and cats in shelters are waiting for someone kind to come along. So if you or anyone you know is ready for the responsibility of giving an animal a lifelong home full of patience, understanding, and respect, please adopt, don't shop. Visit PETA.org to learn more.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports, where the truth really does matter, shedding light and insight on the prevailing controversies, cover-ups, and conspiracies, always from an America First, patriotic, independent, conservative perspective. And be sure to listen each week at the same time. Also find out more about our show at TomDonahueReports.com, also available for podcast listen and download on all major podcast platforms. That's TomDonahueReports.com. Welcome back. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. So glad you can be with us. The final segment, final stretch here. I wanted to thank our affiliates, and we continue to grow. And that's a labor of love, but it's a process. And I want to just truly express my appreciation for these stations, terrestrial, online, that are carrying us, and they don't have to. I mean, it's a choice, and we appreciate the fact that there's a lot of programs out there, and there's a lot of choices and variety and options, and they've chosen us, and we're so glad that we are filling a spot for them on the weekends, and we do this program for the weekends. And Truth Matters is currently heard through our flagship station, K-Star Talk Radio Network, that provides the actual stream for those that want to pick up program from the stream. And again, I also do want to thank SRN, Salem, for, the initial launch and distribution that made it available through satellite. Now, we do have 2 Salem stations that I want to recognize that are carrying the program, and we're so happy that they are. And that's 9:30 a.m. The Answer and their sister station, Freedom 210, in San Antonio, Texas. So that's SRN Salem, 9:30 a.m. The Answer. And another SRN Salem station is in Little Rock, Arkansas, 101.1 FM, The Answer. And both programs carry this show in its live spot at 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. So again, thank you so much. And do want to thank RIA and World Broadcasting Network, WBN 324, So we appreciate that. That's worldwide. It's based in London in the UK. And so we're glad to have that presence worldwide. And of course, Liberty Works, which is a radio network that is freedom-based, patriotic, and I want to talk about Patriot Classics. They're there at Liberty Works Radio Network. Late Sunday night, Monday morning, depending on time zone, we're on KCAA AM and FM radio, and we're happy to have Fred and the good folks at KCAA radio in California. Now, there are some stations that pop on, that carry us, that, I get surprised at times of our radio network, and others do carry us, developing our affiliate media page. And one of the things that I say, if you go to TomDonahueReports.com, on our media page, I provide affiliate information, and I state clearly there's no signed contract or commitment required. Now, we will protect that market if a second station was interested and you're already carrying the program in that marketplace, media market spot, then you would have that, and that's, but other than that kind of protection, you can carry us anytime, anywhere, and we're happy to have you. I did mention that we're in, I believe, every major podcast platform. So you can download the current show, previous shows, go back in time, and you can download, you can listen. And I did want to mention that TalkStream Live, Talk Right Alt Media, we not only carry the show in its live form, or, when it's first offered on Saturday nights, but many times it's replayed throughout the week. So you can catch us on TalkStream Live, Talk Right, or Alt Media, part of the TalkStream Live genre channels. So we are continuing our march forward. We're able to reach people in many different ways. And I hope that you can spread the word and share that. And of course, YouTube TV. So we have a YouTube channel, and all our audio files have been converted to a video format. So you can, if you're a YouTuber, we certainly are there as well. So I'm going to continue finding ways to reach more people with our message. I am a constitutional crusader, a liberty lover, a freedom fighter, and a truth teller and seeker. So I hope that this program works for you. Okay, with that said, Alex Jones is going through his difficulties, and he did play a role in disinformation relating to Sandy Hook. Did he deserve what he got from the government and from those families? Well, that's for you to decide. So there's going to be a lot of changes and shifts to the ownership, the rights. They talk about naming rights to InfoWars and all that. So I'm sure that you guys can find out more by listening to that program. Rather than fighting this in a more rational, reasonable way, he's got his shirt off, he's drinking, he's screaming, he's gone, bonkers, berserk. So that's why people don't take him that seriously at times, because of the behavior and the language. And, I was the one that coined the term bullhorn bully, and he still is. And he still yells and screams and threatens. I don't know at times whether he or Trump are the most which one is the more unhinged, but that's for you to decide. And speaking of some of these media personalities, we do have Cranky and Squeaky, which I've referred to a few shows prior. And Cranky is the man who sounds like he gargles with razor blades, and that's Mark Levin. And he's always cranky, a crusty curmudgeon. And Squeaky, I don't know how he got the gig replacing Michael Savage, who is one of the finest broadcast guys around. And, talk about intelligence and skill and interesting storyteller and just a lot of good stuff. And I've interviewed Michael Savage before. But anyway, I wish he was on the air to counterbalance Mark Levin. But, he's still got his podcast twice a week. He does a program on the weekends, Newsmax. So that's good. But Squeaky, who replaced him at Cumulus, who went going from a podcast to a show and then got canceled, thankfully, is Ben Shapiro. And I could never listen more than a minute or two because of that squeaky voice. I'm not saying everyone's voice has to be perfect, but my gosh, when it's that distracting and that abrasive and that unlistenable. I don't know how someone could be on the air, syndicated on many stations, and sound like that. But yeah, so we've got Cranky and Squeaky, Hall of Shamers, in large part responsible, along with Fairy Graham, with little bubble wand, pushing Trump into this warmongering and into this interventionism and into an unprovoked war because of their own political agendas. Yeah, so Cranky, Squeaky, and Fairy, thanks a lot. We really appreciate your efforts to destroy America and destroy the world. But I hear Mark Levin screaming, yelling, and attacking every fall away MAGA person. And when they respond to Levin, they sound reasonable, rational, and more factual. Levin is just, so bloodthirsty, psychotic for this war and he wants total obliteration, annihilation of the state of Iran, the country of Iran. I mean, I don't know how someone can be this evil, wicked, vile, heartless. It's just it's unfathomable. But yeah, so Cranky, who continues losing more and more listeners, and Squeaky, well, he's no longer on the air, but he's still influential. And they spend their entire time attacking people that are trying to do good work, that are trying to be faithful to the Constitution and to America first. So MAGA is dead, and it's not going to be revived. And so it's a sad day, because I know there's a lot of good people that meant well, and there's still some people that are hanging on for hope that the Trump that they knew or thought they knew is going to make a comeback. It's not going to happen. Case closed. It's over. It's time to move on, and it's time to take out the trash. That's where we stand. It's time for a royal flush. Okay, that's it for this week. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Our website is tomdonahuereports.com. Our program is available, as I mentioned, in various affiliates for the weekend show. And then throughout the week, we do broadcast multiple times on K-Star Talk Radio Network, TalkStream Live, Talk Right, Alt Media, throughout the podcast universe and YouTube. So there's always, if there's a will, there's a way to listen and tune in. Till we meet again, Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Have a great week.